Hi, I'm Jack and welcome back to Real Opinions. This is part of our London Film Festival coverage, which you can probably find from a playlist link somewhere in the description or on top of the video. But yeah, if you want to check out more films that we've reviewed from the festivals, click somewhere else. But with this video, I'm reviewing the Italian film Fiore. So I went into this completely blind. It was a film that I could catch before another one, so it was kind of just, I wanted to see as many films in the festival as possible, and it was available, and so I just jumped into it, and I'm glad I did in the end, because it was a lot of film festival stuff, like you can imagine. There's a lot of films that are either like, there's the top tier, which are brilliant, there's the ones that are smaller but everyone's talking about, and then there's the ones that get no attention whatsoever, and those are typically for a good reason. And I hadn't heard anything about Fiore, but no, I'm glad that I went to go see it. So the plot is, it follows an Italian teenager as she gets sent to a juvenile prison, so that's prison for under 21s in Italy, and it's just kind of following her incarceration and just how she just gets on by. It gives a bit of like Italian, almost Tracy Beaker vibes. It's kind of like halfway between that and I suppose the obvious comparison for a lot of people is Orange is the New Black. The main focus of a lot of the plot is her relationship with a guy. There's a split. It's a split guy and girl prison, so boys on one side, girls on the other, and it's about them kind of sending secret messages between one another, their romance and all of that. I'd say on a basic level, it did everything it needed to do with the film. It covered. I thought the acting was good all the way through. I thought the shots were well done. I thought the editing was good. And I thought that the characters were quite well portrayed. I mean, the main characters were quite well portrayed. I mean, I got a sense of how they would react to things. I understood, like, what's the reasoning behind acting this way or acting another way, which is, of course, is what you're intending to do with the film. For what I assume was quite low budget, it did very well for getting that cinematic feel into something quite small. It was mainly comprised of very standard shots and the occasional longer tracking shots. When they did do the longer tracking shots, it was either impressive for the scale, because there's one where the very first shot is them in a train station. It follows the girls up to the steps, and as you know, obviously, like, keeping a camera steady going upstairs is incredibly difficult. So doing a Steadicam shot going upstairs is not something that they typically try to achieve in a film like this. But they follow them following these girls up the stairs, and it sounds like a simple thing, but for when you're going into a small film, to see that movement in the camera straight away out the gate, you kind of think, oh, okay, so this is a bit more expansive, and also it gives a sense of the fact that they haven't just filmed in their local area, like they've gotten access to the whole of the area, and there's other moments then she's later chased through the city as well, and there's other moments where the camera moves very fluidly, and it's not just because they had the ability to, like, it doesn't just feel it's just because they have the ability to, like, it actually aids some of the chase scenes, and like I said, it gives a bit more geometry to. So when it gets into the prison as well, these tracking shots are quite helpful for, again, setting the geometry of the place. Like Harrison talked about it in his Don't Breathe review, but the famous, I'd say famous panic room shot where it kind of shows you through the entire house as what's happening where, and they did a similar one in Don't Breathe, which is why you made the comparison. But it always follows a character. It's never omnipotent or anything like that, but it's really good to just, like, it shows them going in from one room to another and another and another, and you always know, like, it's never confusing about which part of the prison is where, which, it's not a big thing, but when it's a film is entirely set in one building or something like that, it's not a one location film, it's not that, but I mean, it's helpful to kind of get an idea of where everything connects, and it makes it just seemed a bit more real to me. And again, then the camera is tight for a lot of the time. I mean, even with these tracking shots, it's quite tight on them. And when she eventually goes out of prison, not getting out, but she's like on a parole thing, the camera just suddenly like takes a step back, which, so beforehand you do notice that the camera is close, but it's not a off-putting thing or anything like that. But the moment she gets out and the moment she takes a chance to get fresh air and it takes a step back, you're like, oh, okay, it was a good use of, they go to the beach, and it's like the first time she's been out of prison for a while, and you see a landscape for the first time in a while, and it's a very good way, I think, of conveying the kind of freedom that it feels from getting out of a prison or something like that. There was nothing stand out about the editing in particular, as in, like, it wasn't show-offy or anything like that, but it did a very good job of just, it always felt clear to me. I always knew what was happening, so that was great in that regard. The main problem I have with the film is that it just feels like there was a lot of missed potential. Instead of doing something interesting or different, they just did the usual, or they took from somewhere else. So for instance, I made references to Orange is the New Black, Tracy Beaker and stuff like that. And the reason why I think these things have stuck out is that they were doing something different at the time. I mean, Tracy Beaker, I mean, that's the very British thing to be referencing. But, I mean, it sticks in the mind of British children, I suppose, so that's a good thing. I said that I was always following what was happening, but it wasn't only that, I could tell what was going to be happening next. Like, I think the characters were very well portrayed as well, but in that I could tell how they were going to react to certain things. But when you can tell how people are going to react to everything, I mean, it just doesn't give you any enjoyment from it. I mean, if you know every plot point before it happens, you can't really get that invested in it. I mean, it's still enjoyable to watch, but you're just not, like, you're not going to be, there's no chance of you being on the edge of your seat or thinking, oh, I wonder if this is going to happen or this is going to happen. Like, it gives you a kind of step back from the film, and it just makes you view it a bit more objectively if, again, you can tell everything that's going to happen a few minutes before it does. In particular, I would say that spoilers for the next 5 seconds if you want to skip. I'm not going to make any more important points after this. The best comparison I can think of for just taking something from something else is that it just steals the ending of The Graduate, which I just think just epitomises a lot of smaller, unoriginal ideas throughout all of it. And it's not that it was annoying in how unoriginal it was. It was just it's I suppose it's kind of like the way that a parent sort of goes, like, I'm not angry, I'm just disappointed. I'm not thoroughly put down by this, because I mean, I went in with no expectations at all, and I got a decent film out of it, and no reason to watch it again, but I don't regret watching it at all. And so, another kind of small missed opportunity with the film is that they have this cast of characters within the prison, and the way that it's kind of shot sometimes is that you can get these little glimpses into their lives, like little bits there. Like, for instance, in the beginning of the film, when she goes into prison, she sits down at the dining table, she's the one on her own, all the others, and you see like these two girls holding hands for a bit, and then like it's just like a second or something like that, and instantly, you know, they're in a relationship. And then throughout the next half an hour or something like that, whenever you like look into the background or something like that, you can occasionally see them together, and it just makes sense for you, and it makes it just, again, feel a bit more real, a bit more open. And they have another woman that has a baby, but that never comes to anything at all. They've got such a wealth of characters in there, and they don't really make any use of it whatsoever. They don't make any points with it whatsoever. The two girls that kind of were a small point before quickly realised that it is actually a proper plot point later on, which I feel almost like, I think they did it well, the plot point that they then turned it into, and I did enjoy that part of the film. However, it kind of made me a bit, it annoyed me that the moment where I saw something small and subtle that I really enjoyed from before was then turned into something that was right in front of your face. I think I wouldn't have had a problem with that if there were other smaller details that you could also pick up throughout in the past. So it's not so much that it was that they had this detail and then they've changed it into something that it felt like it almost, since there weren't other small details to kind of pad it in, it just felt like the removal of a feature, if anything. Fiore, if anything that I've said sounds interesting to you, I'd check it out. If it's, I don't know, on TV or something like that, I mean, I don't know where you'd be watching it, but if it's something that you hear about, I mean, it's a decent film, might be worth your time if you enjoy something from the sounds of this. It's kind of like slice of life drama, I suppose. There's nothing too hard-hitting, but it's not soft and bright colours, rainbows and all of that. It's just a quite accurate representation of what I imagine it'd be like in this kind of area. 6 out of 10. I mean, I know this sounds a bit cruel, but I mean, I appreciate all of the filmmaking. It's just that the overall story and everything like that I've mentioned doesn't hold up to pushing it to another level. Great. If you want to check out any of the other films that we've reviewed at the festival, I'm sure you can click somewhere to see the playlist or something.